It is the 6th for the 6th 2025, and there are very many F1 centric thread at which we need to pull. We'll talk Bearman apologising to Max Verstappen. So 2, we'll talk about two-time champion 1, Mika Hakkinen, talking about Max Verstappen's disrespect as a strength. So 2, we'll chime in on Chris Harris and his mates on the Chris Harris on Cars podcast, again dissecting for the circumstance that was the 4th century 5-time champion, one Maximilian Verstappen. British bias settings or not, ladies and gentlemen. It's a bit techie than it's techier than techie things, I promise you, and we will get to all of it. You can say that, oh, it's a bit late, Cameron. Are you flogging a dead donkey here? But people are still talking about the incident, of course, is that between George Russell of Kingsley in Norfolk and one Maximilian Verstappen, as at round 9, the Spanish Grand Prix at the Barcelona circuit de Catalunya. Controversial each and every single time, almost to a man, including Max Verstappen said, you know what, this is something that shouldn't have happened. It was outrageous, said Nico Rosberg. For that, Max deserved a black flag, said Damon Hill. That there's no place for that in F1 racing. That this is meant to be a gentlemanly art. Rubbing is not racing, therefore. And I beg to differ ever so slightly, particularly if we're talking under the umbrella heading of causation. A more interesting angle from my perspective, but that's just me, That's just me. And sometimes you've got to lean into other bods, haven't you? You've got to defer to experts, but guys and girls who have driven, who have raced, and see what they say. Do you know what I mean? Joanna, Crackosaurus, it's going to get techie. Gunny, listen, the hairline's coming soon, I promise. It's not the hairline that's chaotic. It is bald, but there's other things going on here that I don't want to put on. I don't want to have on display for that. Just bear with me, I promise you. Let's talk about Bearman in the first instance, because we know that there was an incident when Maximilian Verstappen was charging through, following a fire-breathing dragon in Lando Norris and trying to gap and overtake him. Then, Joe, you're a legend. Member for 2 months. Oh, the humanity. Go on then. They were navigating traffic at one point, weren't they? Oscar Piastri down the road, and then Lando and Max. We all know that traffic is a brilliant, as good an opportunity even for a third place man to overtake a second place man as you're navigating through. In this instance, I want to say it was Lawson and Bearman, and they impeded. Probably Lando was worse impeded by the melee, the traffic, the back markers than was Mr. Max Verstappen. But Bearman has since come out and said this, and I quote, "I'm not sure why Max Verstappen was upset. I'll need to have a look, but I'm sorry if I did anything bad to him. It's tough to manage everything that's going on in the race simultaneously, and he just went on my inside. I wasn't trying to do anything bad, and of course, if I impeded, then I'm sorry." Props to Ollie Bearman. I think that might come back to help him at some stage. Ensuring, winning, gaining himself some goodwill with the 4 soon-to-be 5-time champion, the one that they call Maximilian Verstappen. Una, you're a legend. We love you without that. I appreciate you saying that, Una. It'll come off, I promise, at some point in the next couple of weeks. I hate a bloody cap. I'm not, like, what am I? Do you know what I mean? Like Ken Griffey Jr. No, I'm not. I want to take it off, but you've got to bear with me. In the second instance, should we talk about, and we're going long, by the way, today, Formula Fridays, where we go back and forth. This is more of an F1 community than it is an F1 channel, a fan channel, where we go back and forth, discourse, modes of each and every single time. Let me tell you what why do I keep saying Max Verstappen instead of Mika Hakkinen? Mika Hakkinen back again, like and then here's what he had to say. And again, sometimes you got to defer to the great ones, right? And Mika Hakkinen is one of the GOATiest, 2-time champion for the avoidance of doubt, 98 and 99, before Michael Schumacher, the Red Baron, came in and took over that 2000 to 2004. Here's what Mika Hakkinen had to say about Maximilian Verstappen. Quote, "Max is impressive because of his pure speed and the control he has over the car." Sentiments, by the way, echoed by Nico Rosberg, who got his Max-plaining hands out and was describing Max's uncanny ability to manipulate the car on and around the limits of adhesion. He was trackside. This has always been Max's gift. Now, if we're going to Max Glaze for a second, it has always been Max Verstappen's gift. Read Mark Hughes' book Unstoppable and he will tell you as much. He has this uncanny ability, does Max, to allow the rear of the car to float around him. Again, limits of traction and adhesion in a way that not too many F1 drivers has ever done. That's why you can put it on pole in Suzuka this year when he had no right to, when the car was not quick enough. Driver circuit settings, Verstappen will always go well around there. Hakkinen continues, quote, he's courageous, is Verstappen. He's not afraid of anybody and he doesn't respect anybody. But I don't mean that in a negative way. It's more of an asset to Chaser. As at the 62025, I don't think anybody wants F1 snowflakery. We want chariots of fire. We want fire-breathing dragons. 2025 Netflix Drive to Survive generation. Some might contend that it has become a bit nicey after you, Claude, and that Max Verstappen is different, cut from a different cloth. To use Sir Lewis Hamilton's word recently, he's built just a bit differently. Mika Hakkinen continues. This is his way of driving. Many people don't like that, but his rivals, they want to beat him. They have to be smart. If indeed they are to beat him, find the right strategy. They certainly don't. No, they can't expect him to change. Touche, Mika Hakkinen. Liam, you're a legend. Evening, Cam Gaddy-Light. Liam out here building market-leading memorabilia stands, of which I'm very jealous, Liam, so I'm not going to talk too kind as always, they say. Go on and let's talk about this Chris Harris on Cars podcast. Now, I think for context, it's important because I thought for a second it was divergence. Nico Rosberg saying he wants to get black flagged. That's what he should have got. And then you've got Maximilian Verstappen fans on the other side of the fence saying, what are you talking about? British bias. How very dare they, Sky F1? Your boy Cameron, in the first instance, watching in real time, thought Sky F1 weren't overly prejudicial, that there wasn't British bias manifest in that. But there's a brilliant podcast that me and you, we listen to called Chris Harris on Cars. The link is in the description. God tier as always. And the joke is about this podcast, they like to talk about cars, not F1, but they always leave a little cheeky segment, and they are God tier F1 minds. You've seen Chris Harris, Mr. Oversteer himself, Suchiya-san, initial D reminiscent of. You've seen his ability to handle the car, manipulate it in and on and around the limits of adhesion. God tier proper. So too Manish Pandey. He was executive producer of one of the best F1 docu picks, if not the best by a gazillion miles, Senna. And he knows a little bit about greatness when he sees it because he's rubbed up against it, studied it, made films on it. They are two of the four on this podcast. And I want you to listen with me to some of what they had to say. And again, accusations of British bias have been made against them, for they are all Brits in the main, and therein lies there. I don't want to. It's not. Is it British bias? Yeah, let's go with it. Therein lies their British bias. Here's what they say in the first instance. And again, one of the chaps on the podcast was asked to summarise the events of round 9, the Spanish Grand Prix at Barcelona, Circuit de Catalunya. Roll the clip.
Lewis is really shit suddenly, and that's really disappointing, and we're all upset for him, and probably Ferrari are even more.
We're going to have to pull it up there, aren't we? This is a British man who supports Sir Lewis Hamilton, 7-time champion, GOAT settings, saying Lewis Hamilton, excuse my French, has been really SH1T. His words, not mine. So I want to say this is really important here. I'm inherently insecure. I will never trust myself. I will always put my suppositions and thesis to the judge and jury. I will always want to test my thinking, see what other people go tier F1 minds than I think. This is a Lewis Hamilton fan saying Lewis Hamilton has been nothing this year other than SH1T. What are we doing here? Goal LH need to take 2 seats now, surely. They've got no chance. Again, 40 seconds behind Charles Leclerc at the Saudi Arabia Corniche track. That's not good enough. That's not Sir Lewis Hamilton that we know and love. He bears no relevance to 2014 Sir Lewis, nor 2007 Sir Lewis. So Sir Lewis wants to keep going to the Met Gala as if there's nothing wrong, nothing to see here. Then crack on, mate. Do you know what I mean? But I would contend that there needs to be variable change if indeed Lewis is to ever harbour aspirations of lifting himself silverware, the unprecedented 8th championship of the drivers' variety. But please continue.
More pissed off that they've given him all that money, and Max just went mad.
Yeah, that was it.
And Lewis is really shit
cracking the
suddenly,
joke,
and that's
of
really
course,
disappointing.
that Max just went mad. He raises another question about John Elkann and the exec level C-suite, what their expectation will be and how the extent to which Lewis Hamilton will be missing it. Now, again, if you benchmark Lewis Hamilton's performance as a 40-year-old F1 driver, again, this is unprecedented circumstances. The hill up which he will need to climb and overcome to get there is very bloody steep, potentially steeper than any other F1 driver has witnessed and had to wrestle with even in history. I only say that to say this. If that's your benchmark, then of course you can extend Sir Lewis Hamilton some grace. But if your benchmark is fire-breathing dragon Sir Lewis Hamilton settings, 2008 Silverstone and 2007 Silverstone Sir Lewis Hamilton settings, 2018 Sir Lewis Hamilton settings, fire-breathing dragon Sir Lewis Hamilton settings, rookie beating Fernando El Plan Alonso Lewis Hamilton settings, then I would put forth the following supposition. Then there is no need to extend that Sir Lewis Hamilton craze. But you've got to pick your poison. It cannot be both. And so this dude makes a valid point. At what point did John Elkann and the exec level bods at Scuderia Ferrari start to have conversations about decisions that need to be made? Not just about Sir Lewis, but about Frederick Vasseur. Probably more the latter than the former in this instance. And then they start talking about, on this podcast, Maximilian Verstappen's incident of the race with King George Russell of Kingsley in Norfolk. Roll the clip.
He shouldn't have driven into George, but we all know why he did, because he was tested beyond endurance.
Yes.
And he snapped. And he's born to win. He's an amazing racer. We know he's highly charged, and we love all of that. But he shouldn't have done it, and he knows that. He pretty much said it shouldn't have happened. It was a mistake, and he gets that. I have a lot of sympathy for what led him to that moment. He shouldn't have driven into George, but we all know.
He shouldn't have driven into George. Maximilian Verstappen has since come out and admitted as much. Of course, he shouldn't have driven into George, but the circumstances around which we argued at the time are more interesting than the whats. The reason why Max Verstappen found himself in that circumstance was 2 or 3 fold. In the first instance, Charles Leclerc ostensibly drove into him and on the straight at 100 gazillion miles an hour, and that, for the avoidance of doubt, is super dangerous. George Russell understeer moment reminiscent of 2021 Silverstone, Lewis and Max. So Max is like, give back the place, GP. What are you talking about? Give back the place? Why and to whom, sir? This dude crashed into me. Why am I giving back the place for? And then you come to find out that the FIA do something that they've never done before, which is, of course, to announce that they weren't going to investigate it anyway. Stir the pot. Why don't you, MBS and FIA race director and stewards? Roll the next clip.
Should he have done it? Absolutely not. Is this just another facet of the fact that Max is pretty damn authentic? I think it is. And I think, George Russell and, Nico Rosberg both sort of saying, well, disqualify. I mean, I'm sure Mr. Cooper has a different view on it, Mr. Harris to some extent, because you race. I'm not sure that, every kid watching this is going to suddenly become a naughty, bad driver. I think, he is built to win, isn't he? That boy. I'm talking about Max. He's built to win, and we all know that he is the best driver, and he's not the best driver by a small margin. I'm hoping that as the years go on, I'm really hoping that Oscar Piastri just gets better and better, because
Max Verstappen is the best driver, says Manish, executive director of the greatest F1 movie that you will ever see in your life. Max Verstappen is the best by some margin. Glaze away, why don't you, Manish? Do you know what I mean? Everything that they've accused me of doing over the past 6 months, now these other great motorsport and F1 minds, of course, are saying the bloody same thing. Colour me stupid, therefore. Surely sometimes when you have consensus, then you can point to some truth and objectivity. Surely. Truth value. Again, you've heard me saying a gazillion occasions, what we will never ever do on this channel is sacrifice either one of those two at the altar of any cognitive dissonance worthy of the moniker. Not now, not ever, even though they want us to do it. I cannot, nay, I will not. That's Manish Pandey telling you, yeah, you shouldn't have done it. Of course he shouldn't have done it, but understand the wheres and the whys and the hows to give you some more colour and context. And I think he makes sense there, Manish Pandey. I think he's onto something. Of course he shouldn't have done it, but the reason why he did it, the fact that Max is a fire-breathing dragon and he only exists to live and breathe and win F1 races, that's all that matters. Surely that's the preface and the suffix, the body of the text. Full stop, new paragraph. And then you get Manish comparing Maximilian Verstappen to Senna and his glory days back in 1993, doing something similar. Roll the clip.
I think it's very hard when you're the best by miles to be in a not very good car and to grab it by the scruff of the neck and to drag a performance out of it week after week after week. I think it's very hard. I saw, beer pong time. I saw Senna do it. In 1992 was probably, it was, for me, that year, these two electric Williamses were driving off and he just got angrier and angrier. And there were times when that would come out. And I think, these people risk their lives when they do this. This isn't tiddlywinks. It's just not tennis. It's not golf. And I think sometimes, yes, is it excusable that the red mist comes out? Is it excusable? Would I excuse him? I don't know if that's the word, but do I understand it in a little moment like that? I think I do understand it.
Touché, Manish, you and me both. Of course you understand it, because you dine at the restaurant of sporting endeavour par excellence, always have done and always will do. You and me both, Manish. That's why you wrote and executive produced the bloody film Senna so well, because you understand what it takes, that there is a cost, no a tax to be paid if indeed you want to win races and therefore championships, let alone be one of the goatiest to ever have goated. Leave the whole pack of crayons, colour me stupid, says here. Navy SEAL Snake says, I think people don't understand role models. We'll get to the role model thing. I promise you, Neil, it's techie, this role model thing, because these lot talk about it. I've got a clip. Do this, says Joe. B. Mendon, all hail Max Verstappen. Nando says, colour be blood. It's techie, this. It is techie, but again, it is a conversation, I'm telling you. But I was relieved listening to the podcast. I thought these dudes, British bias, by the way, I thought these dudes were going to come out and destroy all of my... You can go back and look at my reaction in real time. You see the stream. So, that's not good for Max. But the why is what jumps off the page at me. I thought these guys were going to come out and chastise, destroy Maximilian Verstappen for his automotive pugilistic indiscretions, but they have not, and they did not, and I find that interesting. The rest of the F1 muggles, Max Verstappen, black flag him, how dare Max Verstappen is so wrong, he brings the whole sport into disrepute, blah blah blah. But then there are these goated minds, mention their names, Peter D. Windsor, Manish Pandey, Chris Harris, and this is what they have to say. Max only has white crayons to make chalk outlines. Let's go. Leaves no crumbs, eh? Go on, roll this next clip though. Manish talks about Toto the boy who cried wolf's response now, which is also, of course, very interesting. Roll the clip.
Actually just emerged last night, which was so Toto Wolff was asked about this, and he said, was he told to give the place back? I didn't hear that bit. And then, no, there's no way that would have been road rage from Max. Naughty if it was, but I don't believe it. To which all the comments underneath say, Max to Mercedes for 2026.
1,000 million gazillions. Even if it doesn't happen, here's the important takeaway from this. Toto the boy who cried wolf, as we said on a gazillion occasions, a multitudinous occasion, that Toto the boy who cried wolf will without hesitation drop kick in the chest one of Andrea Kimi Antonelli or King George Russell of King's Lynn, Norfolk, if it means he can get a whiff of the signature of Max Verstappen. Why? Because he's keen to solve cure for the ills of Christmas past. In 2015, he had the opportunity to do so, didn't do it because there was no room at the inn over at the Boys and Girls from Brackley and Brixworth. Nothing doing there. Full stop, new paragraph. Move on with your life. Toto hasn't been able to, especially how Max Verstappen's career has panned out. He's the next generation of driver after Sir Lewis, Carl, Davidson, Hamilton. And Toto, the boy who cried wolf, is CEO and team principal of Mercedes AMG Petronas, or Mercedes Petronas AMG even. Tells you all you need to know. And that's why you see Toto coming out and defending almost Max Verstappen in plain sight. Can you imagine the look on George Russell's face when he sees those statements from his boss, team principal of Mercedes? But how very dare you, Toto? It's not as if that incident was with another person. Do you know what I mean? Another driver not driving a Mercedes car. That incident happened with George Russell, for Pete's sake. And Toto wants to come out and do the I didn't see the incident thing. Oh, the humanity. I don't know. The extent to which we always thought and suspected on the back of the summer break negotiations that Toto had with Team Verstappen. And so too over the course of the Miami Grand Prix. We always knew and suspected the reports and rumours, word on the F1 curb, if that's something in which you want to be invested. All of those points indicated that Toto was always super keen to sign Maximilian Verstappen, but the extent to which he was keen, I don't think we realised just yet. Now that tells you all you need to know. Toto, the boy who cried wolf, is still holding on by a thread to his hopes of signing Maximilian Verstappen fourth, I'm sorry, soon to be 5-time champion in a 2026 season. Oh, the humanity. Roll the next kick, Cameron. There's another one they talk about the save, because there was a piece in there that Peter D. Windsor highlighted that I kind of think most people had forgotten. Off the back of the restart in the final, the dying embers of the Spanish Grand Prix, round 9, Max Verstappen on white labelled hard compound tyres puts his foot down into the start finish straight, and what happens? Massive oversteer, shortly followed thereafter by a humongous tank slapper, both of which is saved by Mr. Verstappen. Nobody's been talking about that. Everybody's still talking about the George Russell incident, but these guys have been at Le Mans. These guys are proper racers, and so of course you bet your bottom dollar that they will want to talk about the save of the century. Roll the clip.
Also, I mean, the race will be remembered for that incident, but I've never seen a better save in a Formula One car.
Yeah.
Honestly, I haven't. It was absolutely outrageous. Flat out on a hard tyre, and he hit the lock stops at 180 miles an hour. I don't think... The question is, could another Formula One driver have saved that? I'm not sure. It was outrageous. Did you see, by the way, George Russell's little brilliant snide remark about there might... Do you think any other driver did this? He said, well, I don't think anyone would have...
Nobody would have saved that car. Nobody, potentially in F1 history, nobody would have saved that car. I can answer that question for you, Chris Harris. And it's interesting that he poses the question that way. It's techie, but again, I think it speaks to Max Verstappen's a bit. I had glaze, Cameron, you can accuse me of it, but it's not only me, one by myself doing it now, because you hear of a British biased media on their independent podcast saying the same bloody thing as me. There is power in consensus. What we will never do on this channel is sacrifice truth, value, nor objectivity at the altar of cognitive bias or any partisanship worthy of the moniker. Never. Now they're saying it. I'm inherently secure. Don't listen to me. Do your own research. Now that you hear, have you seen Chris Harris in a car and the way he handles it, the snap oversteer moments that he overcomes and induces in real time? It's these guys saying this. If Chris Harris is saying that, then he can take it to the bank because he's been around cars long enough. God tier moment, and again shows you why Maximilian Verstappen can afford to, in real time, take understeer out of the RB21 without fear of ramification nor reprisal. He's got it on lock. He can do things that not too many drivers in F1 history can, and definitely not Tsunoda-san in the other car. Now here's where it gets techie, chat. Let me put the context out there in this way. There was a couple of things that happened after the incident, and of course you've got Rachel Brooks in the scrum asking questions, pitching them to the fire-breathing dragons in F1 drivers, the peddlers. And Rachel Brooks said a couple different things. In the first instance, to Max Verstappen, her line of questioning went something like this. Max, did you do that deliberately? Max Verstappen said, does it even matter? And Brooks's response was, well, yeah, it kind of does, because you're so brilliant at Imola turn 1. That overtaking manoeuvre was incredible. But there are so many kids around the world, adoring fans of F1 that watch you and see that. What does that mean for them? What example are you setting then, Maximilian Verstappen, as an idol of sorts? Max responded saying, that's your opinion, not mine. Max Verstappen has told you a gazillion times that he's an F1 driver. He doesn't intend to be anyone's idol. That's a role, that's a title that you are imposing upon him unwillingly. And again, he pushes back on it because he's not accepting of it. That's not his choice. That's not his prerogative. Even some have said that Sky F1 and Rachel Brooks were out of order in their line of questioning. So too the guys and girls over at the Chris Harris on Cars podcast. Roll the clip.
Say about that whole thing was the rank hypocrisy of how the media dealt with it, particularly, and I'm looking at you, Sky F1, at this point. I thought they were tacky. There was a point where they said, there's a QR code on the screen. Do you think Max should have been disqualified? Yes or no? Get out of here. I mean, that is just, they hate the fact that races are boring. So I thought that was unnecessary and unseemly of Sky to do that.
Tacky, hypocritical, untimely, unseemly, says this, but it's techie. This, I'll tell you what. In real time, I didn't see anything necessarily wrong with Brooks's line of questioning. I didn't see. I thought those are questions that needed to be hard hitting ones, but those are the questions that need to be. Particularly the first one. Did you do that deliberately, Max Verstappen? But Chris Harris goes on later to say it was awfully tabloidy from the internationally syndicated broadcast to ask the questions that way, to couch the conversation in those terms to a fire-breathing dragon in Maximilian Verstappen, for some say soon to be 5-time champion, in the heat of battle. Is it fair? Open question to you guys in the chat, a non-rhetorical one. Was the line of questioning from Sky Sports F1 fair? Was that good journalism? Was Brooksy asking the hard-hitting question, as some might say? Or did she overstep the line herself? It's an interesting one, this, particularly as a budding F1 content creator come journalist. I don't know the answers. But again, it's one of those ones where the Overton window shifts in real time. What's acceptable now is very different from what seems to be acceptable as far as Brooksy's line of questioning immediately after the event. Everyone has to agree with VS is being carried. Navy, exactly. They're literally biting the hand that feeds them by trying to go after Max. I don't hate it, Eddie. It's tough, this one. EC says that's the way it should be, but monsters wielding ground jets like weapons is not real. It's not what real F1 fans expect. It's techie, is it? It depends though, EC, who you talk to. It really there's a quote at the end that I will come to in a couple of seconds. I just don't think you want them to be. I don't think you want it. The risk for me is that the most material risk of consequence is that you take the passion out of F1. These are chariots of fire. They are fire-breathing dragons. And if you over sterilize the sport of F1, then I would deem that the biggest risk of most consequence, particularly after 2021 and Drive to Survive, and there's like 40% increase in viewership in North America in particular. If you take this out of the sport, if you make it too sterile and too snowflakey, then I think Houston may have a problem. Interesting. I want you guys to tell me about this line of question. And he said, just so everybody knows, vote for driver of the day is already close 2 laps. True. Also, Joe says GP shouldn't have made Max switch. So go on then. I don't think it was just GP. I think they had a conversation, Joe, amongst Red Bull. So Horner involved in that too. Maybe Helmut Marko, definitely Hannah Schmitz. And they would have deemed that because of precedent, because of the most recent instances, in a circumstance like that, you either give back the place or you get a 10-second penalty. And even then, if you do a risk to reward calc, if you simply if Max gives back the place and then doesn't have the incident with George, I mean, how many points does he lose? From what, 4th to 5th? Hang on. It's not many points, right? The risk to reward calc, therefore, is clear. The eventuality, no, the expected value calc is to just give back the place, because you stand to lose less from that than if you get the 10-second penalty that ultimately Max got under safety car condition, or just after safety car condition, when the field is all concertinaed up. Then you lose yourself 9 points as opposed to a couple. And therein lies the issue. I think that's why GP and Red Bull decided to come over the radio and tell Max to give back the place. A very simple, noddy risk to reward calculation. Speaking though of this hypocrisy, Chris Harris dials down on this. And again, a British journo saying this means more than I think you might understand. Roll the clip.
I particularly, and I don't want to call people out, but I thought that it was Rachel Brooks that conducted the interviews.
Rachel Brooks, yes.
I think she's done a really good job at times. She asked some difficult questions, but this time it felt very tabloid. So the interview with Max was just trying to rile him. And I have a huge problem when you say things like "you're a role model." Max doesn't set out to be a role model. He might be used as one, but that's one thing he has every right to go. I didn't decide.
Children might be watching.
So what? He's made a mistake. He knows it, and for someone in that position to try and get a 4-time world champion to commit Harry Kerry and go, mea culpa, I'm so sorry, I forgive. I'm responsible for all the world's ills, and she kept going at him, and I thought it was bad. And actually, I hate to say it, the reason why it was a poor sort of series of interviews was she then spoke to Lewis, and who was in a very different mindset, and sort of managed to upset him as well by going, "Oh, you look so forlorn. It's so sorry." Look, seeing you this way, and he went, "What do you want me to say? I've had a really shit day at the."
It's true. Lewis was none too happy either. What do you think of that, chat? Let me know. Was Brooksy out of line in her mode of discourse, her line of questioning, or did she do the David Frost things and ask the questions that need to be asked? Crackosaurus, you're a legend as per usual. There is a kids broadcast for a reason. EC says it comes to a point in every sport where fans have to grow up if they want their sport to reach peak greatness. Don't disagree, EC. Thank gosh for some sane people. Nico got robbed. Indeed, Yoko. Yeah, that kid's every time to make look guilty. It's techie. I swear this one's techie about the line of question, because again, the Overton window shifts right. I was convinced that Brooksy at the time hadn't overstepped her boundaries, that she'd asked the proper questions per a God tier interview like a Frost or a Parkinson. And it's techie always, of course. In the UFC, if you guys are mixed martial arts inclined, they always say it's not smart to interview a fighter who's just got knocked out. As an example, there's a moral duty to step back when a fighter's just been detached for their senses. Is it similar when a driver's just jumped out of their car, driving 100,000 miles an hour, adrenaline pumping through their veins? Do you think you're going to get something sensible out of Max or out of Lewis or out of Charles when in the heat of battle now they're distraught, not having met their expectations and fulfilled their dreams of winning another race? 25 points. I don't know. What a tragic figure. Bloody Nora SDW. Are we even going to talk about... Listen, we'll leave Lewis for tomorrow. I'll tell you why we'll leave Lewis for tomorrow. EC says sometimes grizzled F1 vets sound like snowflake purists. A tuna stat. Bloody Nora, EC. Take it easy, mate. It's how you really feel. There's a reason Max is one penalty away from a ban and Lewis has none. Steve, I don't even want to talk about it. We'll do Lewis tomorrow morning because there's a Reddit post that I want to respond to. Somebody's taken my video and gone down. I would argue that the F1 fans, the Lewis Hamilton fans are Reddit. I can't even call them cult LH because they're almost far too polite, arguing sensibly. We'll go through it tomorrow morning, I promise, because it's techie. It is still techie, but I think it's a mode of discourse. We can go back and forth on it. Max will become Kimi on 1 point. Just stare and say nothing. Sky should be a good role model by not acting like They are witch hounding bloody Nora. They are broadcasters. True, Safak. Jordan watch boxing matches too. 100% Crackosaurus. Thanks for the channel providing some sanity, if only fleeting. Love you, you're a legend, Crackosaurus. Oh, the humanity. It's going to get techie. No race this weekend, by the way. How are you going to manage your week? What are we going to do? How are we going to remain sane? Well, there will, of course, be lots of F1 narratives and plot lines. It will get techie. We'll do Lewis Hamilton tomorrow properly. I know that the way that particularly the British media can handle the Lewis Hamilton circumstance can seem unfair to some, but there is a Reddit post where they've taken a video where we talked about Lewis Hamilton recently and made comments that Cameron is disappointing because he doesn't extend Sir Lewis Hamilton much grace, and he should. We'll talk about it tomorrow morning. We'll do another 60 minutes because it's techier than techie things. Always, chat. But listen, I will link that podcast in the description as well. It's important that you go. If you enjoy it, it's important that you go and support Chris Harrison Co over there. One of the best ones, even though it's not an F1 podcast, dropping gems each and every single time. Speaking of sim race, Navy SEAL Snake, there's a portion in that Chris Harris podcast where one of them says that I think it's Manish that says that they do that in sim racing, and they joke. Verstappen.com, Red Line, his sim team always joke that Max Verstappen is more sim racer than an F1 racer. He's a full-time sim guy, part-time F1 guy. And they do that in sim races, don't they? If they feel aggrieved, they will drive alongside you and give you a cheeky bump. Not run you off, but nerf you is the appropriate term. And listen, it happened. Was it acceptable? Well, Max Verstappen has since come out and given as close to an apology as I think you'll ever see from the Force interview. 5-time champion. Contrition. And again, the most contrite that you might ever see some Max Verstappen. But they made the point on the podcast. That's probably not the worst incident that you'll see from Max in the last 12, 24 months even. Bloody Nora. Shout out Mexico. Shout out Cota too. So what are they... Well, I'm not even going to point the finger of culpability at the FIA for the regulatory body for being robust in their governance. I mean, do you know what I mean? No chance. Absolutely no chance. Love you too, Cracker. Time's flying. FP1 will be upon us tomorrow. It'll go quick. I love these live pods. Cam does. You're a legend, Wolfer, as always. Brilliant stuff, mate. The reason is driving style. You're right, Cam. You're right. I'll chill easy. Don't be daft. It's a conversation. And what is this channel if not a conversation under the umbrella heading of the chaos, the madness that is the Wonder Fs? I'll be back tomorrow morning, same time, same place. You guys are legends each and every single time. Between now and then, the prosecution rests. No further questions. Your Honour.